in the last session as well, we learned about the different types and different tools and techniques as well. I'll also try to re-summarize briefly, and we will try to go ahead to the next topic. Okay. So if you all will recall about the memory, so what did we define memory as? Can someone try to use the chat box and say about it? What did we define memory as? What did we say about it? Come on. So answer is there in front of you, especially so this is like a definition from Wikipedia, in fact. Okay. Yeah. So in simple terms, memory is, not just to be able to listen to, or there's not just input. For example, one should be able to store, retain, and of course, whenever there is a need, one should be able to produce it as well. And so that is what is the recall, in fact. So this is a simple process, as I said it. So there is an input, and that's where which lies into the output as well. So GIGO is the thing which we use normally for computers. So garbage in, garbage out. So if there's not good quality input, there will be a bad quality output as well. And that's the same principle on which the short-term memory works and also the long-term memory works. Not just it is applicable for the sorting, storing, but also for the recall functions. So about the sensory memory, as we had already said it, this is the ability to retain impressions of sensory information after the original stimulus has ceased. It actually refers to items which is detected by sensory receptors, which are retained temporarily in sensory registers and have a large capacity for unprocessed information, but are only able to hold accurate images of sensory information momentarily. So this is just for a few moments. So that's why there are two types of sensory memory that have been, most explored is what is called as a iconic memory and echoic memory. So now coming to the first is short-term memory. I think you all will be able to correlate with that. It is closely related to more like a working memory, okay? So this is very short time that you keep something in the mind and then before either dismissing it or transferring it into the long-term memory. In fact, so this is very short than even one can even imagine of. So this is like can even last like just a few minutes, and this is what it allows you to remember the first half of a sentence which you hear or read, and sometimes like, oh, what was that? I can recall the first name of the person but not the full name. Then what will happen is that's the reason to be able to store that information for a long term, for example, a fact, an idea, word, impressions, sight, or whatever else, it must be transferred into a long term memory. So, now what about the long term memory? So, this is anything you are able to remember what had happened at least more than a few minutes ago. Okay, so this is not just all of the equal strength. So stronger memories enable you to recall an event, procedure, fact, or demand. For example, that Paris is the capital of France, but weaker memories often come to mind only through prompting or reminding. So if someone has to tell, only then someone will be able to remember. So then what is the declarative memory? So, this is the aspect of human memory that tends to store facts. This is why it is called, because it refers to the memories that can be consciously discussed or declared. So, it applies to standard textbook learning and knowledge, as well as the memories that can be traveled back to one's mind's eyes. So, that's why it can be further divided into the episodic or the semantic memory. I think you all will be able to correlate very well with the procedural memory, isn't it? So, this is the long term memory of skills and procedures, like, for example, how to do a permanent pacemaker implantation, how to do a coronary angiogram, or how to do an echocardiogram, in fact. So, that's what is more of a procedural memory. So, because procedural memory not just is the audio memory, the visual memory, the tactile memory, the haptic memory, so it's all a mix. So, this is the reason procedure memory can be very, very important. And in simple terms, so this was more of a psychological model which was used for, the sensory memory, going into short term memory, and going into long term memory, how the things can go. So, the number of items, usually words or numbers, that a person can retain and recall is the memory span. So, it is actually a test of working memory. So, like the short term memory. Okay, in a typical test of memory span, an examiner reads a list of random numbers aloud about the at the rate of like one number per second. Okay, then at the end of the sequence, the person being tested is asked to recall the items in order. So the average span for normal adults is like 7 to 9. So up to 7 to 9 orders one will be able to recall, but beyond that it becomes difficult. So that is why if you would like to be able to do it more, you all have to be able to understand what is the mechanism for that. For example, if you want to treat heart failure, you want to understand it, right? What is the pathophysiology? What is the mechanism? What are the what is the evidence so far, for example, for the treatment? So how you can control it, how you can regulate it, and that's how you do it, isn't it? So similarly, as I had already said, it memory process is also like the memory in the computer, which allows us to store information for later usage. And in order to do this, both the computer and us, we need to master the three processes which is involved in the memory. So the first one is encoding, second relates to storage, and the final one is about retrieval. So in simple terms, so this is we all, I think, we all will recall from the neurology days how it seemed like. So the different areas of different memories, it constitute into the different areas. The amnesia, the forgetfulness. In fact, what about the frontal lobe, the temporal lobe, the auditory lobe, prefrontal lobe, and all. So there are now scientifically proven different things. So we all can forget, but we would like to improve it, isn't it? Without any medication. So it is easier to improve using different techniques like recall. Recall, the free recall can be like no need for any cues at all. But serial recall is like you put them in a particular order and you do it. So this actually involves digging into the memory and bringing back information on a stimulus or response basis. For example, what is capital of UAE? Hmm? So recalls often need prompting with cues to help us retrieve what we are looking for. It is not a reliable form of memory, and many of us experience the feeling that we know the answer, but simply can't dig the information out. This is the technique we use to remember people's names, hence, we often forget it. Then comes what is cognition? And if you add re to that, is the recognition. So the events, process, patterns, or a process that occurs in the thinking whenever we have some cognition has caused various objects has recurred. So it comes actually from the base cognition, and it is accepted to be used in different fields of study and has general process of awareness or thoughts. One of the important things is also like relearning. Relearning is actually like another means of remembering through relearning. So relearning information may return quickly even if it has not been used for many years. Are there any tips which you personally feel strong about it, especially to improve memory? Please use the chat box. So, among our students, anyone would like to share some tips? So, whatever is being said, you should try to pay attention to that, isn't it? And it is quite a lot helpful. So, if you never learned it, of course, you will not be able to know. But try to, whenever something is being taught, try to be attentive, try to make eye contact, try to use the other senses like the auditory, tactile, smell, and even the taste as well. So, more are the associations if you make while learning, more you will be able to recall. Then, rehearsal. Rehearsal means, so for example, at least try to repeat it twice, whatever you're thinking. Overlearning. So, one thing is there, if you want to remember, for example, 5 facts about neurons, why not then read about 10 facts then? So, out of 10, if you will, at least you will be able to recall at least 5, isn't it? Then, what is space practice? So, it is said to be superior to the massed practice. So, what happens is 20 minutes of study session is better compared to 1 hour of study session, of which is continuous. So, so if you want to really study 60 minutes, so what you should do is 20 minutes of study session, take like 5 minutes or 10 minutes of gap. Again, 20 minutes of study session, take around 5 minutes of gap, like that, I would say. Then, for example, the organization. Whenever you are preparing for uh, or any competition or anything and all as well, you have to organize the material in some form. Such an organization may be helpful by creating a natural context and provides relevant cues while retrieving the learned material. So, if the material lacks natural organization, an artificial organization may be created by the learner, and make sentence in encoding to easily rehearse information, focusing your thoughts, speech fluency as well. So this is something important. So rather than taking the whole stuff, try to break it into small parts. So what is called as chunking. Okay. So this also involves creating something more meaningful and therefore memorable from seemingly random bits of information. One example is if you need to remember a list of things, for example, uh, like you have to buy figs, lettuce, oranges, apples, and tomatoes, then what you can do is uh, make to use the first letters of them and use a word called as float. So F for figs, L for lettuce, O for orange, A for apples, and T for tomatoes. Float. So this will be easier to remember, isn't it? And I had already suggested a lot of other things as well. Similarly, you can also use this technique for also remembering the phone numbers. So then about chunking. So as if you all will remember, rather than remembering the whole thing, put them into small and easy to remember chunks or easy to remember groups. And especially this is useful whenever you don't have to read, that those things has to be there in the exactly same format. So, and then after that, um, the other important thing for this is about like positive feedbacks is also very important. So I really believe if am able to pursue cardiology because of my teacher who was there, who was really a great teacher, Professor George Cherian. I can't forget. So he was one of the first few cardiologists in India who passed. And later on, of course, he himself became the head of department of cardiology at Christian Medical College, CMC Vellore. So he was one of the first few cardiologists of India who literally examined the other cardiologists, in fact. So there was no DM and all those days. Huh? So that's how it was happening. But what I meant is, and the positive feedback was amazing from him, and I really feel that that was one of the big reason for me, in fact. So, and the other thing is minimize the interference. So there should be good amount of breaks, but you should not keep on taking those breaks for longer time. Let it be there, but for shorter duration, take those breaks, get back to your work as well. Then it's not just like uh, working. You all will, I think, agree that exercises is important. Exercises, I mean to say, not just in the form of the brain exercises, but also the physical exercises as well. They are very important. Brain exercises, I mean to refer is, so this is more of like use it or lose it. If you don't use it, you will lose the information. So that's why uh, it is more like, yeah, it is like a sword. If you keep on using it, it will be pretty sharp and you can use it anytime. However, if you don't use it often, problems will happen. Then, the other important thing is aerobic exercises. In fact, the best way to improve our memories seem to be due to increase the oxygen supply to the brain, which can be done using the aerobic exercises. Walking, for example, for like 3 hours, or each week at least, it is a pretty good one. Or similarly, like swimming, bike riding, in fact, and it gets the heart pumping more blood to the brain. In fact, that is the one which causes reverse cellular deterioration, which can happen, of course, with the aging. And then, yes, you have to eat right and drink the right way as well. So, for example, like things in omega 3 fatty acids, and you should keep on hydrating yourself as well. And similarly, even in the vegetables or salads, more colored is your food, better it will be also for your brain as well. Whenever you are trying to read as well, try to make notes. So, whenever you find it difficult to remember something, write it down. Then, social activeness. So, the healthy relationship stimulates your brain cells. So, that's why keep maintaining good relationships and happy to improve your memory. Okay. So, what about this? Isn't it a beautiful smile? I think we all love beautiful smile, isn't it? So, what happens is it not only activates the areas which is vital to learning and creativity, but also it causes the secretion of which hormone? So, what is the good time hormone? What is the stress hormone and what is the good time hormone? So, endorphin is the good time hormone and cortisol is the stress hormone. So, yes, and don't keep on messing up the things and all. Keep the things in its place. There should be a place, for example, for keeping your keys, then, for example, keeping your wallet, and yeah, maintain those places. Similarly, have a hobby and do those hobbies as well, pursue those hobbies as well. And any new information, if you come across and all, you should be able to relate to it. So it will help you improve your memory. So there should be a good basement. On top of that, only you can build the top floors. Okay, then uh, be calm and relax during listening. Avoid any prejudging, interruptions, interpretation, or analyze anything by thinking the unknown material. So, whenever something is being taught, so for example, you think like this: one of the I will really share you a very practical example of this. I can never forget this example. In one of my neighborhood, when I was growing up in my early days of school, I was like 5 or 6 years old, and I remember, so there was a word like world's longest word. So one of my neighbor kid, he had a textbook in which it was written. He didn't want to share it with me, so he used to say that word few times. Can anyone recall the world's longest word? So that word is listed in the Webster's dictionary. That is different, and the world's longest English word, which is there in the Oxford dictionary, is different. So the world's longest word in the Webster's dictionary is new mono ultra microscopic ciliovolcanioiosis. So if someone thinks I just took a shot, I'll try to repeat it for you. New mono ultra microscopic ciliovolcanioiosis. And the other word, flossiplossimihi. These two words, what he used to do was, wherever we used to meet in the evening time, he used to repeat orally, but he never used to allow us to write it. You know what I did? I broke those words into small segments and I remembered it. Okay? So, on an overall basis, so that's a practical example. I think if I can do it, you all can do it as well. I would really like you all to participate in an environment and also response through positive attitude. And so sometimes what happens is some sense related to an event can preserve memory and retrieve easily by again smelling this, in fact. So, for example, something like over here, events in the music. Music according to your skill and profession, and of course, the one which you like. Similarly, meditation. Meditation, not only it improves the focus, the concentration, creativity, learning, reasoning skills, so it is believed to encourage connections between neurons which increase the mental sharpness. And on an overall basis, I would like you all to be positive. Think positively. Things will be going wrong, okay? This is how is life. No one can say that it will always be, you know, positive, in fact, and all. No, things will be going wrong. But the thing is, how do we take it up? So attempt and understand the negative musings and try to supplant them with positive ones. So, uh, massage. What is the reason for massage and all? So, what's the good thing about massage? So, massages are not only good in helping to avoid the emotional stability, mood swings, incompatibility, and tightness, in fact. Then, for example, if you want to uh, memorize something, you can, again, similarly, as I had said, you can try to use the smell of rosemary versus the basil. And then natural environment, they are the best healers. They not only give us chance to think, but also please our internal states of emotions. So this lecture as well, uh, yeah, you can always search with my name, Dr. Narendra Kumar, on YouTube as well, and you will be able to get a lot of similar summaries and on the cardiology lectures as well. Dr. Narendra Kumar, electrophysiologist, it will come. So then, not just the nature, but even the healthy habits, like regular exercises, it not only reduces the risk of disorders that leads to memory loss, such as diabetes, cardiovascular disease, but also increases oxygen to your brain. It can further enhance the effects of helpful brain chemicals and protect the brain cells. So, we have already spoken about a lot of stuff and all. So, it is actually a common experience that forgetting is usually a source of trouble for people. Everyday conversations, classroom participation, performance on examination, interviews, Presentation, communications, and meetings often put demands on us to remember information. And failure in doing so has negative consequences, which all of us experience to some degrees in our life. As a result, most of us are interested in improving our memory. The study of memory aids and related techniques is called mnemonics. Yeah. So the recoding actually, while dealing with the non-meaningful materials, one may be able to recode the items to be remembered in a more meaningful manner. And the recoding may take many forms. For example, people may use the first letter of the other items and make a sentence. This kind of narrative structure works as a cue. Acronyms, which we all know, for example, like the WHO for World Health Organization, huh, is there, and then similarly, we already use acronyms for a lot of other memory things as well, like just putting up the first words together. And using elaborations, one may add more information to that. So, chunking, which we already read about it, is again a good way. So, the efficiency of memory recall can be increased to some extent by making inferences from our personal stockpile of world knowledge and by schemata. And a scheme is actually an organized mental structure or framework of preconceived ideas about the world, how it works, which we can make the realistic inferences and assumptions, for example, how to interpret and also process information. That's why the use of scheme may not sometimes lead to memory errors as assumed or expected. Okay, so the concentration. So one of the main reasons for forgetting is the inadequate allocation attention resources. So okay, when someone is teaching right now, I'm not listening, I'm trying to do something else as well, then how can one expect to be able to remember that? Yes, mnemonic strategies are very important. We already said about the haptic memory, audio memory, visual memory, the sensory memory. So if more and more you try to associate of the different types for one thing, it will be more and more helpful to you. Then the memory palace. So, as the name implies, this technique actually uses the associations with place or task. The visualization of the same provides cues for recalling the task. By choosing any action properly, one can use memory at any time in the day. So, use of such mnemonic codes allows one to have vivid and distinctive associations between new information and prior knowledge. Being related to the context, the cues can become very, very effective. For instance, one may have a clear visual image of a building, its rooms, furniture, and other details. These may be even linked to different ideas, and using these linkages, memory of those ideas can be enhanced. So, survey. What is survey actually? So, you try to glance over the headings in the chapters to see the few major points which will be developed. These surveys will not take more than a minute and will easily show 3 to 6 central ideas within the chapter. In fact, these surveys will be able to help you organize to the ideas later on whenever you're reading. So, one of the big killers in our modern day is stress. So, a good idea, of course, is to manage stress. How do you manage stress? Anyone would like to share their tips? Come on. By pursuing some hobbies, by doing things which you like, trying to escape that situation. But yes, it's not that like if there is a problem in your life, just escape from that. No, try to work upon that. If there is a problem, there is always a solution as well. You should be able to find about the solution. Try to speak with your near and dear ones, with your good friends, and surely you will be able to come out with some better strategies as well. Sleep is not just important for memory consolidation, but insomnia and sleep apnea can leave you tired and also unable to concentrate during the day as well. And yes, smoking heightens the risk of vascular disorders that can cause stroke and constrict the arteries that deliver oxygen to the brains. And one of the important things I would really like to say is we all are humans. We do forget. But we have a brain, big brain. Use that to learn, relearn, and the newer things as well. Okay? And yes, forgetting, we will forget. But there is loss of information, which is already encoded and stored in the individual's long-term memory. So it is a spontaneous or gradual process in which old memories are unable to be recalled from memory storage. So yes, there are several factors like aging brain, the experience changes in the ability to retain and retrieve memories. The hippocampus, I think you will remember from that picture, is especially vulnerable to age-related deterioration. So this is how it says like how well one can retain information. There's relative loss of neurons with age, which can affect the activity of brain chemicals called neurotransmitters and their receptors. An older person often experiences decreased blood flow to the brain and processes nutrients that enhance brain activity, which is less efficiently than a younger person. So now, since we already read about the memory, the different types, how to enhance it, what about the forgetfulness? So what is the amnesia? So we should know that as well, isn't it? So what is amnesia? Anyone would like to try? So in simple terms, it is actually the loss of ability to memorize information or to be able to recall information which is stored in the memory. So it can be antegrade, so where someone can't remember a new memory, retrograde, in which one will not be able to recall the past events. But there are various forms to that as well. The various forms I mean to say is, as you can already see, so for example, retrograde amnesia, what will happen is new memories will be pretty fine, but one will be able to forget the old memories here. In the anterograde amnesia, as you can see, so the old memories will be fine, but one can't form